Hey, welcome back to the Practicing Mindfulness series. We're learning a 3-step process for practicing mindfulness. The first one is waking up. It is coming out of our experience and just observing what's happening. The second one is sensory clarity. It is getting more clear about what's happening in our sensory experience, specifically in our thinking and in our feeling. And this is the third one, which is equanimity. Equanimity is essentially acceptance. It is being open to our experience regardless of whether it is pleasurable or uncomfortable. Now, this is kind of counterintuitive, but what equanimity teaches is that resisting uncomfortable experiences makes them even more uncomfortable. We find inner peace not through escaping discomfort, but from accepting that discomfort is inescapable. This is at the very core of Buddhism, which teaches that all life is permeated by dissatisfaction or a flavor of dissatisfactoriness, that things never really satisfy. We can have really nice, pleasurable experiences, but we always default back to a place of not being satisfied, place of lacking fulfillment. So what Buddhism and, well, really what equanimity teaches is that by opening to the discomfort, by being present with it and accepting it, it becomes less uncomfortable, that things actually get much easier. Resisting uncomfortable experiences only leads to more inner friction and inner conflict and just makes everything harder. A lot of our discomfort comes from the resistance or the avoidance of uncomfortable experiences and not actually from the experiences themselves. It can be helpful to illustrate if we look at a more extreme example. There's this doctor named Robert Scare. He wrote a book called The Trauma Spectrum. He was doing rehab for car accident victims that suffered from whiplash. And what he found was a certain segment, about 20 or 30% of the people that had whiplash were not healing. And he was really curious why. Why is this certain group of people, this certain segment of the population, not able to heal from whiplash? And why are these other people very much able to heal from it? So what Dr. Scare discovered was that every single one of his patients that wasn't able to heal from whiplash, also had childhood trauma, or you can say disorganized attachment or attachment trauma. So it was actually people's childhood experiences and really emotional trauma, not just physical trauma, but emotional trauma that kept people from physically healing. To help understand what's going on here, we can look at what an ideal childhood would be like. If we were a kid and we had a really uncomfortable experience, let's say something happened, we were bullied, we were feeling angry or sad. If we had a secure attachment with our parents, we'd go to them and we would show them how we were feeling, or they would just attune to us. They would be present enough with us and attune to us, and they would see that we are in discomfort or we're in pain. And an ideal parent would say, "Oh, look, I see that you're in pain. I see that you're angry, or I see that you're sad. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel these feelings." And they would help us feel safe to feel uncomfortable experiences. Healing and growth is all about how safe we can feel to be with the uncomfortable experiences. How open can we be to the discomfort? If our environment didn't feel safe enough to go into that discomfort, to be present with the discomfort that was arising, then we never learned how to be open to it, and as a result, we close down. We dissociate or we block out the negative feelings. Now, if we have constant uncomfortable sensations, if we were growing up in an unsafe environment, if it's an abusive environment, or if we just never feel safe, we are going to end up very dissociated and very suppressive of our feelings. So we essentially become hardwired to resist and stifle any feelings, and it ends up being held in a sort of chronic tension. So what Dr. Scare discovered was that these people who were not healing had this chronic tension as a result of childhood trauma, which you could also say as a result of just a lack of equanimity. And these experiences compound. So if you're used to dissociating or shutting down, contracting around uncomfortable experiences, then that's going to keep happening, and it's just going to become more hardwired into our system, and that's going to be our natural way of reacting. So with equanimity, what we're doing is we're training ourselves to go in and be open and be okay to feel the discomfort. This is how people heal trauma. It is finding a safe environment, usually with a therapist where you feel safe enough to go in very slowly and very carefully and experience the uncomfortable sensations that have been repressed or dissociated from. Now, we're talking about trauma in these more severe cases, but the reality is this happens to all of us along a spectrum. We all have these uncomfortable and difficult experiences when we're young and throughout our lives, and we've habitually, unconsciously closed up around them. We contract. And what we're trying to do with mindfulness, with meditation, with the practice of equanimity is to open to the discomfort, to loosen up, to soften, and to allow ourselves to be with the uncomfortable sensations. We all unconsciously resist uncomfortable experiences, and this just leads to more inner tension, more stress, more anxiety, and more of a sense of inner conflict. With equanimity, as we practice opening, being with the discomfort, it makes things smoother and it rewires us. It allows us to be more and more open to our experience. And what happens is the uncomfortable experiences, the painful experiences, those become less painful. We feel them more, but they hurt less. And this is where it's really counterintuitive. We think that if we feel something more, especially something uncomfortable or something painful, it's going to be a lot worse. But when we practice feeling it more, when we practice being open with it, the pain element goes away, the suffering element goes away, and we're more able to process. Equanimity is like a muscle, and at first it may be really difficult to be with the uncomfortable experiences, may even be overwhelming or disorienting. But as we find more and more comfort in being with them, more of a sense of safety, we get stronger. We get more able to be with them. This is how exposure therapy works. Let's say you have a fear of spiders. At first, you think of a spider and maybe it spikes some discomfort, but then you get used to being with that discomfort. You get more comfortable in that space. Then maybe they'll show you a photo of a spider, and then that's going to bring up more discomfort. By opening to the discomfort, by being in a safe place, by allowing yourself to feel that, you become more accustomed to it and your senses of equanimity get stronger. You're more able to be with that. The discomfort or the distress, it might not actually go away, but you become more okay with it. It is causing less inner reactivity and it is causing less of a fight or flight reaction. Eventually, with more practice, you can maybe even be present with a spider, maybe even hold one in your hand. And this is what happens through all of life. All of life is like this spider. All of life is uncomfortable. There are things on a day-to-day basis that we resist, that we try to avoid, that we shut down around, we become contracted. We want to practice this type of exposure therapy to life. We want to practice being open with our experience, practice being open with our emotions, practice being open with our thoughts. It is bringing this acceptance, this being with them. So equanimity is acceptance. It is accepting our experience as it is in its totality. Where people get caught up with this is they think that acceptance means that you have to like it. Acceptance does not mean approval. You don't have to approve of these things. You don't have to approve or like all the suffering and pain that's happening in the world, all the injustice. But so long as we resist accepting it, we are creating this unnecessary inner conflict that is just weighing us down, it's tightening us up, and it's making us less effective. It's making us less able to rise to the occasions we need to. It's making us less capable of dealing with whatever's happening in an intelligent way. So while equanimity absolutely lowers our sense of reactivity, that's really what it's all about. It is not a stifling of reactivity. It is actually first accepting our reactivity, accepting that we react to certain situations, to certain experiences in a way, and that's okay. Can we be okay and open to that reactivity and not try to stifle it? And through that okayness, through allowing the reactivity to come up in our system, to run through our bodies, whatever uncomfortable feelings are arising, we are wholly open to them. We are accepting them moment to moment as much as we can. And as we do that, over time, with practice, our reactivity becomes far less intense. With practice, we can notice when this reactivity starts to come up, and we can really feel this part clenching. I feel it right here. Some people feel it in their jaw, in their neck, even in your hips. And with this awareness, with the clarity, and with the equanimity, we can open to this experience. We can allow it to move through us, and suddenly these things are a lot less distressing, and life just becomes smoother and more okay. and we become more responsive, and we can react more intelligently and more appropriately in various situations. This is the power of equanimity. It is a life-changing skill. So tune in and notice, where are you resisting your experiences? What types of things happen on a day-to-day basis that you can track around, and see if you can feel safer bit by bit to open, to be with the discomfort. This is the power of mindfulness, and this is the power of meditation. In meditation, we are sitting for long periods of time, just opening and being with whatever's arising, whatever feelings, whatever thoughts, and accepting them unconditionally. At least that's the practice. We call it practice because we're not perfect at it, and you get better with practice. So hopefully this has inspired you to practice equanimity a bit, and practice mindfulness in general, and hopefully even practice meditation in general. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on mindfulness, meditation, and how to cultivate these qualities in our everyday life that are going to make things better, easier, that are going to allow us to be more effective in our lives. Thank you very much for listening, and stay tuned for more videos.